also from Mike Adams of naturalnews.com, a great article where he outlines 10 outlandish things the scientific controllers have in mind for you in the near future. And just to give a little background on this article, it really is preferencing a lot of the long-term goals the globalists have outlined, the kind of stuff the Huxley family has been closely tied to, portrayed in Brave New World, among other things. And Mike Adams writes about the corporate-driven science, which is different from the real science we need to explore our universe and find solutions. But instead, this type of science has its own agenda. It's partially profit-driven, and obviously there is a control attempt in place as well. And he's got a long list here. We'll go through a lot of it. He talks about the organ harvesting from genetically modified patented pigs. This is something in the near future. We've reported on it in some of Alex's YouTube videos and a whole lot more. It's a cross-species human-pig hybrid, and they're going to grow supposed replacement organs, all genetically modified. Who knows if it's safe, but obviously it'll be sold at a premium. So whose life will it save? Those who can afford it. That's the kind of thing you will see in the future technocratic state. You also see the rise of behavioral vaccines to rewire your brain and eliminate dissent. Now, what exact form this may come in and when is somewhat in question, but this type of chemical lobotomy was talked about in the early 50s by very like Bertrand Russell, who speaks for the elite directly. You've heard before about his quotes, including how diet, injections, and injunctions will create the kind of character the state desires, about how they'll have a separate class of people, the intellectual ruling class, and other types of information for the dumbed-down masses that they only use for their benefits to society. And you've seen also proposals to put things like lithium in drinking water ahead of fluoride to help keep mood in check and more. You've seen proposals for vaccines that will curb mood, fight addictions, fight obesity, and a whole lot more. But really look at what direction this is all going. Now, Mike Adams also talks about the centralized remote monitoring of all your health statistics and vital signs by the police state. He's predicting this will go much further than just digitized medical records on some database. It'll go much further than the secret database of blood that they've been collecting for several decades. States like Michigan have been fighting against it, but really, this is something that was outlined in George Lucas's film before Star Wars, which is all about the rise of the New World Order technocratic state, THX 1138. I don't know if everyone has seen that. Now, THX 1138 really is a dystopic Brave New World Order themed movie where, among other things, you are forcibly medicated, and when the protagonists stop taking their drugs, they're convicted of illegal drug avoidance. That's exactly the kind of thing Mike Adams is talking about here. And it may seem like fiction, but this stuff is pre-programming for the direction we know these New World Order entities are going. And by the way, George Lucas talked about the New World Order, knows all about it. Mike Adams also brings up the total secrecy of all food ingredients, sources, and places of origin. This is already underway. As you well know, the GMO powerhouses have fought and fought to keep labeling off of their genetically modified foods. They don't want people alarmed about the fact that genetically modified foods may have bad consequences. They don't even want people to know the differences. And most of all, they don't want to be able to link any of the bad effects back to those companies specifically. They want to keep the burden of proof extremely high. And that leads to other dystopic things. But the idea of keeping where, how, and what your food is made of is very disturbing indeed. He also predicts the complete criminalization of home-produced foods and medicines, forcing total reliance on factory food production. Not only do they want centralized control of everything in your life from food on down, and all the big government subsidies for corn, soy, and the rest of it have gone a long way already towards that. They want to keep you from that kind of independence. And it may surprise you, but founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson and others, warned that the power of government would take over the power over food and medicine as well. And they warned about it back then. That's part of the reason they wrote the Constitution and brought in the Bill of Rights. Mike Adams also warns about the unleashing of global bioweapon pandemics through seasonal flu shots. And yes, it may surprise you if you haven't studied the issue, but they do introduce diseases, whether on purpose or not, through these new inoculations and the very controversial way they are produced. And yes, it does have a population control aspect that could, among other things, dumb down or eliminate lower IQ people the state does not want anymore. He also predicts the total government control over your reproduction and genetic code of your offspring. This is also happening. You've seen that in themed films like Gattaca, but it's really the rise of A, global infertility since the rise of global government, and it's B, a brave new world order system where the state authorizes who's born, and they will hold the solution for infertility at a cost, at a premium, and only those the state approves of who work within the state systems will be allowed to have children. It's sad but true, and if it doesn't seem possible, I encourage you to do further research. He also predicts wireless brain implants used by law enforcement to pacify crowds, and the genetic engineering of super soldiers, as well as the use of electromagnetic activation of metals and crystals injected in you through vaccines that could cause you to stand down or be immobilized. It could all be done in the name of science. And since at least the 20s, the Rockefeller Foundation and other powerhouses of finance and influence have controlled a lot of the research and development of science. Unfortunately, things are going in that direction. You've seen the crackdown on farms, vitamins, raw milk, and a whole lot more. And we better be on watch for this kind of thing. There is a transhumanist agenda, by the way, and that has a lot to do with the Huxley family. Alex asked me a few weeks ago to do a report on Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley, and their influential grandfather, who worked hand in hand at the Royal Society of Science in the UK with Darwin to use evolution as a wedge for what really was eugenics control. And that report is forthcoming. I've done a lot of research, and I'm going to bring you that in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. Finally, in the news, AllGov has posted really what is an old example, the U.S. State Department's website that attacks conspiracy theories that include September 11th, health freedom, and a whole lot of others. Now, this has been up for a while, but it remains important because this is a continuing attempt to kettle free speech on the internet to find a pretext to clamp down. You saw their attempt to brand the water pump failure in Illinois as a cyber attack. That failed in the short term, but they will increasingly blame all sorts of things on the internet and the proliferation of free speech therein as they bring in more controls there and try to clamp down on the population in general.